It was on March 1st, 1797, that Governor Samuel Adams signed a bill granting a charter to the trustees of Deerfield Academy. And 2 years later, the first building was opened for classes on January 1st. Since that time, the Academy has offered a secondary education designed to prepare boys for the college and university level, as well as the more lasting challenges of life. Deerfield is situated appropriately on the Deerfield River in the Pocumtuck Valley. It has a beautiful and functional campus compatible with the surrounding early American homes. This record is about our school after a century and a half of operation and is dedicated to its proud heritage and its headmaster. Fall, and the upper level at Deerfield is quiet in the early morning. The fields are covered by a white foggy mist from the river, indistinct in the morning's soft light. In the west, the trees and brush on the hill take on varying shades of gray. It is in this atmosphere that Deerfield students begin their day. In the dormitory, however, things are not as serene as they seem from the upper level. The Deerfield boy perhaps hears the 7 o'clock bell, hoping that maybe it only struck 6 times. But he must soon resign himself to getting up as his clock's persistent reminder confirms his worst fears. The alarm clock begins the day for him each morning, and as he rises he hears the familiar sounds of the shower, the electric razor, and the doors slamming, all of which are part of his Deerfield life day in and day out. Time moves ahead 1/2 hour. It is now 7:30, breakfast time, and so as the Deerfield boy enters the dining hall, the routine that is the prologue to the day's classes, sports, and activities repeats itself. As the lobby bell chimes, Mr. Sullivan gives the blessing which is inevitably followed by the roar of 500 boys moving their chairs as they prepare to eat.
These and all thy blessings make us truly thankful. We ask it in the name of Christ.
Winter, and it's 8:15. The Deerfield student has gone back to his dormitory, gathered up his books, and is now walking down snowy Albany Road toward the main school building, where he is about to begin the most important part of his day, classes. Education is the foundation of all activity at Deerfield. The Academy offers each student the opportunity to strive for scholastic betterment in the conducive atmosphere that can be only supplied by a faculty of the highest caliber and a course of study of the highest standard. This course of study, consisting of a combination of history, math, foreign language, English, and science, gives the student a broad educational background. And undoubtedly the voices of his teachers are the sounds that most profoundly influence him. Their words are the memories he is least likely to forget. U.S. history teacher Robert Crow delivers a formal lecture on the 1920 presidential election, or perhaps it would be more appropriate to say Mr. Crow on stage.
That led him to the lucky choice of normalcy, which was immediately picked up by the reporters, headline writers, and editorialists of the nation's press, and also by the expert publicists of the Republican National Committee, who used it in a phrase that appealed irresistibly to millions of war-weary Americans. Back to normalcy became the slogan of the Republican Party. Now, to the average person, what in God's name could back to normalcy mean? If one of you were to tell me that you wanted to be normal, what do you mean by this? All of us would obviously have different standards as to what normalcy is. And yet, Warren Harding could stand up before 40,000 people and say, "Let us go back to normalcy," and they would all break into cheering that would last 5 minutes. Now, what did Harding really mean by normalcy? Well, here he sums it up in a speech. This is the President of the United States, or about to be. "Oh, how I love the good old times when the Republican protective tariff policy filled the Treasury. The age of Hayes and Chet Arthur and Ben Harrison and Will McKinley."
Punctuating his remarks with an emphatic chalk, Mr. Peter Hindle reviews the previous night's trigonometry homework on the blackboard.
In place of the 1 over here, in place of the 2 over on the coefficient of the cosine x, so that we're going to get this all down in terms of one expression. Okay? Now, we set up our triangle so that, again, we have a 1 here, and we'll put the 2 in up on top there, so that this hypotenuse comes out to be about the square root of 5. All right, we call this angle theta in here. Remember, this is an angle that we can figure out. We have all the facts that we need. The tangent of theta is equal to 2, and we can work that out. All right, in place of 1, we put in the square root of 5 cosine theta, and then times sine x. Minus, and in place of 2, we put in the square root of 5 sine theta. Sine theta times cosine theta is equal to 1. Next thing we do is divide through by the square root of 5. So we're down in this form. And here again, we're to the formula sine cosine minus cosine sine.
Mr. David Hirth conducts a question and answer period in his French class.
Arrivé dans cette histoire de Candide, et je vous ai arrangé des questions, n'est-ce pas, là-dessus, parce qu'il faut, n'est-ce pas, que nous considérions ce qui s'est passé, c'est-à-dire la satire de Candide ou la valeur de Candide. Comprenez-vous? Par exemple, ce n'est pas un texte ordinaire. Ce n'est pas un texte ordinaire du tout. C'est un texte d'une très grande importance. Alors, il faut savoir, n'est-ce pas, exactement où tombe cette satire. Alors, la première question, par exemple, n'importe qui peut répondre à ça. Par exemple, M. Baker, je crois. Citez-moi, par exemple, évidence que Voltaire déteste l'avarice. Comprenez-vous ce que c'est que l'avarice? Un homme peut être avare, comprenez-vous? Avare. Oui, alors comprenez-vous? Alors, citez-moi évidence que Voltaire déteste l'avarice qu'on trouve partout. Par exemple, en Europe, en Asie, n'importe où.
Quand Candide est allé à Buenos Aires,
Oui.
Dans l'Amérique du Sud, il a trouvé le gouverneur de cité.
De la cité qui était...
Et ce gouverneur était avaricieux.
Oui, il était avare, n'est-ce pas? L'adjectif est avare. Avarice, c'est le nom, n'est-ce pas?
Il voudrait avoir tout ce qu'il voit.
Oui, tout ce qu'il voit. Et il s'appelle Don Fernando, n'est-ce pas? Il a beaucoup d'autres noms, n'est-ce pas?
Et il a beaucoup d'argent et son démarche est fier et il porte son nez en
Non,
eau.
non, il porte son nez, n'est-ce pas? Il porte son nez en eau. Et qu'est-ce qu'il désire? Qu'est-ce qu'il désire immédiatement en la voyant? Il désire quoi, monsieur H?
Il désire
Cunégonde. Alors, il a envoyé notre cher Candide, n'est-ce pas, faire la revue.
One can almost see Mr. Robert McGlynn lean back in his chair, tilt his glasses slightly, and lecture informally to his English class about writer Bernard Berenson.
He was the last of the humanists, someone said. I don't know where it is that it's appeared. I thought this was some of the things he said. Until 30, these are from his diaries, and this is an old man now of 84, writing, 85. Until 30, I lived in a magic world. After 30, I began to want not only to be informed, but to understand. It is the problem with which I have been increasingly occupied ever since. The more I try, the less I succeed. And even knowledge is dissolved, and doubt prevails over everything. I now feel that I know little, except the quantitative matters universally accepted, and understand nothing. Positively nothing. An extraordinary statement for a guy who was sought by the world, as a matter of fact. The entire world came to his door. He was a brilliant conversationalist with an insatiable curiosity and a greatly cultured instinct for all things beautiful, for all things grand. But the point I had in mind was this business of understanding. Here is a man who was a realist, if ever a man was, and not an illusionist, who the effect of whose life's wisdom is to make him doubt his knowledge of a single thing by the time he's 90. This is rather fascinating, I think, in this context.
The chemistry department has been the domain of Mrs. Helen Boyden for over 50 years. One can hear her at her very best in this concluding teaching selection as she is caught momentarily unawares while explaining to her class the true emphasis of learning.
I practice all the morning. Nothing like practicing. It's so that you're natural, which is the most contradictory thing I've ever heard. All right. Now, this is the class that I chose to have recorded because you are the class that I chose. All right, now why did I choose you? I think that you realize that at least 50, more than that, half of you, I taught your fathers. Now let's see. That the primary difference between what I taught some 20 years ago and what I'm teaching now is that then they learned things by heart. Now, and they did well. They were good. They studied hard and they did well. Now, what do I expect? That you what? That you know why. That you think. And then my teacher said to me, Victor, when will you stop trying to remember and begin trying to think? Now, the matter with most people is they don't like to think. They've never tried it. And as I have told you, if you try it sort of easy like, as Alice did, 10 minutes before breakfast each morning, it gets so it doesn't hurt. And you get so you can think. And then the whole thing falls into a system, and it's much easier. Now, let's see. We have been studying here.
Sports constitutes the second largest facet of Deerfield life. for athletic competition and spirit are as equally important as academics in developing a fully educated individual. It is felt that there should be an opportunity for each boy to participate in the athletic program, and consequently, there are many teams below the varsity level. At the fall rally each year, the varsity captains speak on their respective sports in hopes of converting old students and recruiting new. Here, Captain Lewis Glass expounds on the advantages of tennis while pointing out the faults of other spring sports.
I think tennis is the greatest sport there is. What other sport can you play until you're 85? Just think, after your friends have hung up their track shoes and sold their lacrosse sticks to some other unfortunates trying out for lacrosse, you will still be bouncing around the court. I once saw a man of about 90 run a high school student to death. Of course, this will never happen to you after you have been under coaching of Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed, with very able assistance from Mr. Morseman, will make sure that you are in top physical condition. After my talk, I hope most of you will go out and buy tennis rackets. The other few will take out their lacrosse sticks and toss a hard rubber ball from one stick to the other stick, from one stick to the other stick. For these, there is no help. Obviously, they are lacking the general cool required for tennis. They refuse to realize what advantages they would have if they only played tennis. Take girls. How many of your girlfriends play lacrosse or run track? None? Do you know what they're doing? They're out playing tennis with your best friends. I remember an incident that happened at a party that I will never forget. I had just arrived at a party given by an old buddy of mine from school when I saw this beautiful girl, literally surrounded. She seemed to have enough company, so I left well enough alone. But there was another fellow there who just had to talk to her. His name was, Scholl, Brooks Scholl. This great monster from the lacrosse fields of Deerfield shouldered his way toward the girl, stood before her, swelled his chest, and said, "Duh, I play lacrosse." Besides whatever advantages you may get out of playing, you will have the honor and privilege of playing with the only undefeated varsity team of last year.
The most thrilling aspect of all sports is actual competition, where one can experience the physical and mental involvement of the athletic contest, and where the tension and excitement is culminated in the drive for the score. Whether it is the touchdown, home run, or in the case of hockey, the result of a blue line slap shot by Paul Hurley against the Vermont Academy varsity. After the goal, the players face off and the game is resumed, but the crowd awaits a formal announcement. There is an active interest in sports at Deerfield, and the Academy has always been able to take pride in its strong school spirit. You can hear this spirit expressed in the sounds of the annual Choate Rally as the students voice their support of the varsity teams.
Men, put it up your arms and sleeves. It's dusty, that's what's making that ball slip. All right, let's listen up for a minute now.
The short flat patterns aren't too good, you know.
No, they're jamming stuff out there. Now, boys, once again, we had a much better first half. We did a lot of things better. But we didn't put anything on the scoreboard other than that 7 points. Now you can see how costly a fumble can be early in a ball game because it takes a little out of your sails. And then we had to come back and push the rest of the half. Now this second half, we're going right out there and we're going to put a lot of things on that scoreboard in a hurry. Get that ball and push it into that promised land in a hurry because I'll tell you, we're going to need the experience next week.
Competition, spirit. These are the things which Deerfield's athletic program offers to each boy. In the following varsity basketball contest, the reason for sports is aptly summed up. There, one can hear the sounds of competition and the cheers of a spirited student body enthusiastically backing their team. Dr. Frank L. Boyden has been headmaster of the Academy for over 60 years, and during that time he has been primarily responsible for raising Deerfield to its present standard of excellence. Dr. Boyden is a rare individual who is a truly great educator because he does more than concern himself with the student body as a group. He also makes an effort to take a personal interest in each boy. always directing his development towards the high level that is the standard expected at Deerfield. Most evenings he conducts a 7:10 meeting at which announcements regarding school activities are made.
Yeah. All right. Averill. Here. Clark G. Pell. Here. Terry. Are there any announcements? Sullivan? Mariam?
Gordon, varsity hockey team defeated Amherst freshmen 7-2 this afternoon. We weren't very impressive. I didn't feel anyway, but it's always nice to win. Amherst had a couple of boys who skated pretty well, Brian Mullaney among them. Any of you who saw the game may have seen his good forechecking, which was always so helpful to us last year. We have excellent depth.
Any other announcements? Mr. Miller?
Mr. Boyden, could I see Sushnik and Whaley after the meeting, please?
Any other announcements? Mr. Cushman?
During the winter term, each senior corridor is invited to the Boydens' home for a dinner, which ends invariably with the boys sitting on the rug at the headmaster's feet. There he speaks in his special, informal way, telling stories.
Now, just now I think of it, at least about half an hour longer, it would be... Now, I'd like to tell you a story to end up on. Did I?
Don't have him perjure himself.
Did I ever tell you the story of Mellor? Any of you ever hear about Mellor? Well, you ought to. He was one of the really greatest baseball players in the history of the game. And even today, anyone who knows about history knows what a marvelous outfielder he was, right fielder, doing the impossible almost every game. Well, he was on the New York team, and a very important game was to be played with the Philadelphia team. And for that game, the Philadelphia manager brought up all of the rookies from down of the camps in the South, and they were all lined up along the bench, and the manager was up front, going to explain the fine points. And in the sixth inning, there was a Philly runner on first, and the Phillies run a batter. And he drove a terrific line drive to right field, and the runner on first looked out and he said, well, nobody can possibly field that ball. I'm going third. And Mellor made one of his marvelous stops and a perfect throw to third. Third baseman tagged the runner, and the umpire set out. And the Philly manager went down and he said, boys, that was a play in 1,000. You'll never see another like it in 100 years. And in the ninth inning, the same runner was on first. The same runner, the batter was up, and he drove another drive to right field. And the runner on first looked out and said, well, Mellor got that other one, but not even Mellor can get that one. I'm going to third. So he lit out for third, and Hart had one of his most graceful, impossible plays. Perfect throw. Third baseman tagged the runner. The umpire set out. There was a little southern fella down on the bench, and he looked up and he said, say, boss, time passed awful fast up here in the north. What's that? All right, boys, I know 4 or 5 more really good stories, but you see who's boss.
Dr. Boyden typifies the spirit of Deerfield. He is a man universally respected by student, alumnus, and parent, and his years as headmaster have made him more a symbol of what the Academy stands for than anything else. Thus it is fitting that Dr. Boyden, as leader of the school, is the one who imparts the heritage of Deerfield to so many boys.
Last night, I thought it's the best thing that we've had in, probably 10 years. It really had the thing that I like to have you put into whatever you do, and we certainly had it last night. We also had a very good minister. Now, I don't know just exactly where to start, but I thought I'd read this book through. There are only 1,000 pages here, but it deals with the very early days of the school. You see, they got together and they felt there must be a school. And so the neighbors all chipped in, and they sent down to Boston. The legislature passed a charter for them, and it took 3 days for the man riding horseback to get back with that charter. Then the whole town had a celebration, and the trustees had their first meeting over in the Prairie House. 150 years later, our present Board of Trustees held a meeting in that same room around the same table, and they approved all the acts of their predecessors for the 150 years. It was a very interesting meeting. Now, of course, Deerfield and this surrounding country has always had a great respect for education.
Music has always been a Deerfield tradition. At the present time, there are a variety of performers and listeners who belong to the various formal and informal music organizations. Practicing in the attic of the main school building, the guitar combo can often be heard at off hours from one end of the campus to the other. Here they play a student favorite, the James Bond theme. The Glee Club, directed by Dr. Clement Schuler, is one of the more prestigious music organizations, partially because of the serenading tours to surrounding girls' schools. At Spring Day, they perform before a large audience of parents, alumni, and friends.
Animals, 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 animals. Yes, Lord, the animals are coming, one by one. The old cow chewing on a caraway bun. The animals are coming, 2 by 2. The elephant and the kangaroo. The animals are coming, 3 by 3. They're in the bug and the bumblebee. Oh, the animals are coming, 4 by 4. The old hippopotamus stuck in the door. The animals are coming, 5 by 5. Thus the animals did all right. these tricks. The animals come 7 by 7, the old fat pieces.
Who that show?
The animals come 8 by 8, Noah holla.
Shut that gate.
The animals coming 9 by 9, Noah holla.
Put that line.
The animals coming 10 by 10, the old black who's whistling, and nobody knew where they was at till the old black pump found their road rat. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah,
The Evensong, also performed at Spring Day, is perhaps the most beautiful musical tradition at Deerfield. Deerfield days are days of glory. Memory lives in every song. Let no other name be spoken till thee, then hour is done. However, musical participation is not merely limited to the various organizations at Deerfield. The Academy has long had a reputation as a singing school in which every boy takes part. Perhaps the finest example of this participation is the Sunday night Vesper service, which falls at the end of the school week. The power and the strength of song is well demonstrated as the boys rise for Mrs. Boyden's hymn.
number 59, first, second, and last verses.
It is probably most appropriate that we conclude with the hymn that signifies the end of the Sunday sing, the end of the day, and the end of the week, the evening song. Spring, and another year will soon draw to a close. A senior class will graduate, a freshman class will enroll the following autumn, and thus Deerfield's heritage will continue, progressing as it teaches in the classroom, on the playing field, and in the dormitory. This has always been the Deerfield theme, continuity, and it lasts though generations of boys come and go.
If